Hello, everybody. Share the show out. The Mexican Crossing Lines is on a few. We're streaming on Facebook, streaming on YouTube at Duke1517, and on Twitch at a Mexican Crossing Lines. Share it out. Let your friends know this show is going on. It's very, very important, very, very timely.
Welcome, everyone. Please follow us on all our social media platforms, on YouTube at Duke1517, on Twitter at media_PPP. You can email me at cindy@kpppfm.com or Duke at kpppfm.com.
You can contact us at our call-in number
701-566-0917.
That's right. Leave a message. We'll get back to you, or we'll put you on the air. You can talk for about 3 minutes.
Welcome, everyone, to a Mexican Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp
and Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And today I am covering the deadly danger of schools. Following the latest mass shooting in America in Uvalde, Texas, the latest mass shooting being the 220-something mass shooting thus far this year in 2022, and we're only in May. It is astonishing that we have back-to-back mass shootings in this country, more than one a day. 1 out of 10 approximately happening in the southern states, in places like Texas, because of the continuously more and more lax gun control laws. And as a parent, as a mother, you have to begin to ask yourself, what am I doing? How do you just wake up after another devastating day of seeing and hearing the parade of dead children and their grieving parents on television? Do you just get up tomorrow, put your kid in the car seat, put your backpacks and lunch bags in the car, and mindlessly drop them off at the nearest institution where there is apparently no guarantee of safety for your children, and where there is no transparency or accountability on the part of school administrators, on the part of school boards, city officials, law enforcement, mayors, governors, and the like. As a person that has been reporting on incidences of mass shootings, of abuses that go on in the schools that harm our children, I'm talking about bullying. I'm talking about fights in the schools and police resource officers that abuse their power. Students and teachers that discriminate, that assault, that make fun of students in the school because of their race, their religion, their disability, or their sexual identification, and it gets swept under the rug. We have reported for years about the cases of students who are injured at the school that have concussions, lacerations, and more, and no ambulance is called to the school to assist them. No transparency of the events that took place within the school administration. There was retaliation against the parents when they finally find out about what happened to their kids, and the school, the administration, the school board, the police, and the city officials try to sweep everything under the rug so they can go on collecting their $200,000 a year plus salaries at the school board administration level per year, so they can continue to collect their millions of dollars from the federal government for funding from the Department of Education, so that they can continue to fund the school resource officers and the police forces that are now increasingly hired exclusively to patrol schools, all so that we can have outcomes like the one in Uvalde, Texas yesterday, where despite the fact that the Robb School, elementary school, where this horrific tragedy took place, had its own police force with 5 officers and 1 armed security guard on the grounds, it didn't save the 19 children or the 2 teachers that were killed. So we're going to have a tough conversation about the deadly danger of schools today. It's time. As Beto O'Rourke said when he confronted the officials, the mayor, the senators from the state of Texas, and the governor himself, and told them that they needed to do something, and they needed to do something now. He was called a son of a beep by the mayor of Uvalde, Texas, for confronting the situation and for politicizing the issue. What are we supposed to do when we continuously see the parade of dead children in our country, and our officials, our city leaders, call us son of a beep because we care, because we don't want to see any more children die? And Beto said, how do you just turn off the emotions, the anger, the frustration? How do you go back to sleep? How do you turn inward and become numb? He said, no, that man that called me a son of a beep and said that I should not be politicizing this moment. This is the moment we should be politicizing. This is the moment to say, basta ya. No más. No more dead children. No more dead teachers. Whatever you're doing, it isn't working. It hasn't worked. Every single sorry excuse that came out of a politician, an official, a policeman, or a media, empty. They said and repeated the same things we've heard over and over again. That we need to have good guys with guns, that we need to arm teachers, that we need to lay traps and put a moat around the school with alligators on it and tripwires, that we're supposed to put our children in what sounds to me like a prison with razor wire, and that none of the measures that approximate a secure institution with armed guards, even as they did have at the Robb Elementary School, is going to stop the ongoing massacres because of this astounding number of guns that we have in this country. So, Duke, we're going to have this conversation today, especially with regard to the ongoing investigation of what occurred yesterday at Robb Elementary School, because there are many questions.
Oh, yeah.
And
definitely,
we're going to talk about this, Duke, because so far politicians haven't given us any solution. Is there anything that they can do or that we can do.
Yeah, in fact, they're trying to take all attention away from it. Just don't look here. Don't look here. There's midterm elections coming up, and this is something they do not want to deal with. And so far, any of the solutions I've heard from any of the people in Congress have been empty. It's just like, let's go back to what we've been trying to do for the past couple of years, and can't even get that done.
I know it sounds harsh to say this, but if I hear another politician or pundit or talking head in the media send thoughts and prayers, I think I'm going to punch somebody in the face.
Oh, yeah.
We don't want your effing thoughts and prayers. We want gun control. We want safe spaces for our children. And if you can't keep them safe, then you can't have our children. If you can't guarantee that our children will be safe in the schools, then you can't have them. You didn't have any problems passing anti-CRT and anti-transgender bills all across this country because a handful of MAGA right-wing extremist parents protested at school board meetings all around this country because they were scared of their children learning the true and proper history of this country or of treating transgender kids with human dignity. It made my head spin how quickly they passed laws all throughout this country against these measures that do not slaughter our children on the daily. Did you know that the single greatest cause of death in America to children, it's not COVID, it's not car accidents, it's not poisonings, it's guns. And we can do something about it, but we lack the intestinal fortitude to do anything. And it's time that we did. It's time that we stop. Let's start by examining what really happened yesterday, because I have to tell you, as a reporter, one of the reasons why we have this station and this platform of independent, non-for-profit media is because the mainstream media and the for-profit media never tells us the full story. How can you, with a straight face, call it the news when it's so old? When by the time we actually find out what happened in a major event like this, it's weeks or months or even a year or two later. How is that news? That's not news. That's old. We're going to bring you the news here. We're going to show you what actually happened. Because last night, all I saw all throughout the day was how the media was praising the cops, praising the response by the authorities in the town and the city, praising the governor and the politicians of the state that have done absolutely nothing to protect children from gun violence in Texas or throughout this country. And patting themselves on the back, sending thoughts and prayers, and telling us not to politicize this moment. And I have to tell you, it is truly breathtakingly disgusting how inaccurate that reporting was. Because what we found is that not only did they not tell us what really happened, what those parents and those children went through was truly horrific. Let's go to this thread from Twitter where we located some of the reporting. Let's review the reported performance of the Uvalde police and the CBP response team on Tuesday. They waited 35 to 60 minutes before entering the school while the kids bled out, wasting a golden hour of time. They tased and arrested parents, begging them to go into the school, and attempted to rescue their kids themselves. It is actually far, far worse than that. Not only were they threatening the parents, can you imagine being one of the parents out there, Duke?
Oh, it's horrible.
Hearing about your children and hearing the gunshots going on as they beg the cops to go in, as they're observing that the cops are huddling, waiting for backup because they wanted to wait for an armed tactical team before rushing inside. These are armed officers that have bulletproof vests, but they don't have the cojones to go inside of the school when unarmed parents with no protective gear are literally trying to push their way through the police line while they are having guns and tasers pointed at them because those cops couldn't stand the possibility of a group of parents, motivated parents who wanted to save their children, to go inside and stop the carnage and save the life of even one of those children.
And plus, it was like they're freaking out because they don't know if their kids have been shot. And they come to the school and they're like, nope, you can't go in, you can't go in. And they're not going in. The cops weren't even going in. They're just letting the guys shoot kids in the face.
Exactly. Not only, look, from where I'm sitting, the armed officers with long guns and tasers were holding the parents hostage, protecting the gunman inside while he went on his rampage. Because those cops, those armed police officers, physically held back the parents from trying to go inside and save their children. And we know that the inaction of the police led to at least one known child, an additional child that could have been saved if not for the inaction of the cops and the wasted time. Saved when the cops finally did go in, when they did enter the school, they went to rescue their own kids first.
Wow.
That's the next slide that is from Twitter. And it says that they proved themselves to be incapable of opening a locked door to the room where the shooter was, because the shooter went in, locked the door behind him, and started going on a rampage. And they fumbled around to try to find a school employee to open the door with the key, which took them nearly an hour to do.
Jeez.
They went inside, and the officers that went inside first, they went to rescue their own kids rather than dealing with the shooter. An armed school resource officer failed to prevent the shooter from entering the school, even though he engaged him before entering the school, outside the school. Uvalde's SWAT team had done a walkthrough of this very school in February to prepare for just such a situation, and outside observers are saying that the Uvalde police ignored every lesson they learned from Columbine until today.
Wow.
Did they not learn that waiting outside, waiting for SWAT, waiting for the cops to get the gumption, for the good guys with the guns supposedly to get in gear and do their job, is deadly? Did they not learn that lesson? Apparently not. Another dead kid is our next slide. When the police did enter the classroom, they failed to neutralize the shooter first. And as a result of that, another child died due to their incompetence. I will give you a little bit more of a detailed account of that. They also lied about their timeline. They didn't want you to know how much time they wasted. They didn't want you to know that the police didn't go in and that they kept the parents who wanted to save their children from going in. And you should also know that in Uvalde, Texas, the budget of Uvalde, where there is only about 17,000 people in a very tight-knit community that is in the southern part of Texas, about 75 miles from the Mexican border, 40% of their budget in that small town goes to police. And for what? So this child that died, Duke, according to this report, it says there that they were hiding under a table that had a tablecloth over it. And so they weren't in the view of the shooter because of the tablecloth.
All right.
That tablecloth, up until that point, had shared their lives. There was a boy there that was hiding. He heard a cop come in, and the cop yelled, "Yell if you need help." And one of the students yelled for help. The shooter overheard her, came back into the room and shot her. The boy that was hiding under that table with the tablecloth told reporters.
Wow.
And then the guy shot at the cop after that, and then the cop started shooting him.
Yes.
And after the shooting stopped, this boy was able to come out from under that table. And the best part of all of this, not the best part, I'm saying this ironically, if you'll put that slide back up for me, is that because the Supreme Court decision in Castle Rock versus Gonzalez, which was a 2005 decision, delivered by none other than Antonin Scalia, they decided that no matter how incompetent, cowardly, or negligent police are, they cannot be held accountable for their actions or inactions.
Wow.
What are they good for then? What good is it to throw millions or billions of dollars, increase their budgets, increase their gadgets, increase their toys, when they can be completely negligent, incompetent, abusive, corrosive, and there's no accountability for it?
Exactly.
What is the point? I ask. Let me show you the parents outside of the school. For those listening on the radio, I apologize that I cannot censor certain things that might be said on this. It's really a cacophony of crying and screaming and police grunting and groaning and yelling at terrified parents who are trying to break through the police line, begging and trying to get inside to save their children. So roll the video. I'll try to narrate some of it here. There are police that are standing, holding, or sitting on top of a person. You hear somebody say it's frozen. Dude. Look at this parent begging, running at the police, begging. Husband's holding back the mothers, wrapping his arms around her. Look at how he's begging, and the sheriff is just pushing them back, pushing them back. These are armed officers terrorizing parents who are desperately begging to save their children. While they stand around and do nothing. While they stand around and do nothing but protect the shooter inside. from any of these brave parents trying to get in. Those are all the cries, the screams, and in agony of those parents. Imagine that.
It's horrible.
It couldn't be any more horrific. And this isn't something new. You know what this reminds me of, Duke? This reminds me of George Floyd and the people that for 9 minutes while he was being murdered in front of their very eyes by Derek Chauvin and the other police officers that basically did nothing to save him. The people were all screaming, "You're killing him. Let him up. You're choking him. He's dying. He's dead. Let him go." People were screaming and begging as this criminal cop and his cronies were killing and doing nothing about the killing. And that's exactly what happened here. There is death happening, and the police officers, the guys with the guns, they're not going in. They're waiting for a tactical team. They're armed, but they're not using those weapons to try to go in and put their lives on the line and protect those children. No, they expect armed teachers somehow in the future to do that.
So whatever happened to protect and serve? And also, this should have been leading on the news right away. And I bet it won't be covered. I bet this footage and this how the parents were treated and how the police prevented or caused more death because of their inaction. They're cowards. And the police are really used to going in and just beating up people of color and breaking down doors. I mean, they break down doors all the time. Here they couldn't open a school door and they had to wait an hour. An hour before a janitor could bring a key.
You couldn't break a window.
These cops break down doors. They break down the wrong people's doors and kill them. But when it comes to kids being protected, mainly kids of color, they're standing outside waiting for Godot.
If they told them that there was some drugs inside and some drug money inside that they could steal, I bet you they would have gotten in there somehow.
Exactly.
Or if you would have told them that there was a school teacher in there teaching CRT, or that there was somebody, or there was a teacher wearing a mask inside promoting vaccinations, man, you would have had a whole slew of people in there.
Yep.
Maybe you should have told them that there was a trans child trying to use a neutrally gendered bathroom. Mm-hmm. Then they would have busted down the doors to save that. But you have a bunch of babies, you literal babies, children, dying, bleeding to death inside the school. And what was the response from the cops? Tasers and long guns. That was their response. Tasers and long guns. And not only did these cops have long guns and tasers out that they were holding and pointing at parents, stopping the parents from saving the lives of their own children. It looks like in this picture, you can see they have the parent pinned to the ground. You can hear one of the people yelling, "What the F are you doing to him? Let him up." I'll tell you what they were doing, sir. They were terrorizing you. These cops weren't there to save the children. They were there to protect the gunmen, to terrorize the parents, to stop the leak of their horrible conduct from getting to the mainstream media. And the mainstream media, well, all of you did a horrible job of telling us the truth. All of the tears of all of your anchors combined will not match the pain and horror that have been experienced by the parents of Uvalde, by the people in Buffalo, New York, by the latest mass shooting of any of the schools. Nothing that you say on the 10 o'clock news is going to ease their pain or make them feel more comfortable about getting up the next day, packing their kids into a car, and dropping them off at the next mass shooting zone. And we shouldn't have to. You shouldn't be able to put a parent in jail if they refuse to send their kids to your school because you can't keep them safe.
Exactly.
You shouldn't be able to send a truancy officer, take someone's children away from them because they refuse to send them to a school that can't keep them safe. I was uncomfortable with the idea of there even being an armed officer at the school. I don't let my kids go to people's houses that own guns.
Mm-hmm.
I don't let my kids visit people that have guns in their house because I don't want my children around that kind of danger. But now I have to send my kid to a school with a possibly racist resource officer that might body slam or choke my kid because they don't like what they're doing. Instead of a school fight from bygone years where two people hash it out in the schoolyard, you have school resource officers putting their neck on a child's knee and leaving them with permanent brain damage, like we just heard on the news yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's what the gun at the school brings to the school. It brings a school to prison pipeline that puts your kids, black and BIPOC children, in detention more frequently, in expulsion, that puts them in handcuffs, that sends them to prison because of the over-policing and over-punishing of those BIPOC communities in school. So much so that for ages, governments have been predicting how much more jail space they're going to need by counting the number of brown and black kids going into first grade and kindergarten.
Wow.
The number of kids that actually graduate from these institutions or that leave them unscathed is minimal. I don't have a single person that I know of in my family that didn't experience harassment, physical, mental, from teachers, from students, discrimination, abuse from bus drivers, beatings, and the threat of violence in the schools that was not ever something that school officials, police, or anyone in government could guarantee parents the safety of their children from. And now we have mass shootings every day.
Mm-hmm.
When is your kid's school going to be next? How many times right here in Fargo-Moorhead have we had lockdowns? Have we had the threat because somebody took a weapon to school or because someone threatened the school, threatened to bomb the school or shoot up a school? How are we okay as parents to continue to let this happen? These parents had a wake-up call. I hope you're having one today too. These parents stood outside. The onlookers that were outside, that were the parents, were begging the cops. You heard them screaming and crying and pushing through the police, begging to get their children out. The cops stood outside the school while the killer rampaged inside and while the shot up teachers and students bled to death. Onlookers were yelling at the cops to go in. Go in. They would not. One parent huddled with bystanders and urged them, let's just rush in because these cops aren't doing anything like they're supposed to.
Wow.
And guess what? They didn't let them. You saw the video in the aftermath of the huddle of the parents desperate to get their kids. They threatened them. They knocked them to the ground. They pushed them back. They pointed guns at them and threatened to kill them and threatened to taser them. They traumatized them, re-victimized them, and held them hostage and prevented them from saving the lives of their own children. That's the opposite of what the cops are supposed to do.
Exactly.
That's literally the opposite. One thing that you should know is that some of these parents, and it is not yet clear, but some of these parents may have been receiving communication text messages or phone calls from their dying children or from their panicked children inside the school. Here is one such account that may indicate that parents had information. One thing I heard in the video, only after several viewings of that video, there's a longer 6-minute version on YouTube you can find of the Uvalde parents trying to get in the school, where the cop was saying, "We're taking care of it." And the parent yells back, "BS," and says, "He ain't dead yet." And this tweeter says, "It makes me wonder how they knew that from the parking lot. How did they know whether the gunman was dead from the parking lot?" The Washington Post reported that the gunfire could still be heard until 12:52 p.m. So reporters on the spot, people on the spot, they heard the gunfire, and another person comments back, "You can hear the gunfire starting up when the parents start screaming in the video."
Wow.
It's so fast. It's so rapid. I thought it was the wind at first, but it's not. And if you go back and you find that 6-minute version of the video that I just played for you, at around the 44-second mark, you can hear the blast of bullets. And you can hear them again later on. It's the same rapid fire sound. It's not the wind. And if it had been the wind, it wouldn't have been repeated in exactly the same pattern.
Exactly.
If you listen to the video yourselves, go on YouTube, find it for yourselves, listen to the whole thing. Inspect it and investigate it, like we had to do on the January 6 videos. Like Americans had to do to find out the truth of what happened in the ugliest, treasonous attack in our country against our government in the last century, where home sleuths looking at videos contacted the FBI and the authorities that led to hundreds of arrests, going on nearly 1,000 people.
And this should make people angry. They should be angry. People are remorseful. They're in mourning. But knowing that the cops were doing this, and they were already trained. A couple of weeks before that, they had trainings on how to deal with the situation, which says they weren't sincere, earnest, or really were going to do anything. And to see this and to see how they were treated and how it caused more death, people should be outraged.
If it is really truly the job of a police officer to protect, to serve, then there would be a way of punishing those who didn't do their jobs.
Yeah.
The fact that there has been a Supreme Court case going back to 2005 that says that it doesn't matter how negligent cops are, they cannot be held accountable. It should tell you everything. But if that doesn't tell you everything, then keep in mind the fact that other cases that have gone to the Supreme Court have said that cops have no obligation. No obligation. Cops have no obligation. Unfortunately, the courts have already ruled this, Duke. Wow. Police have no obligation to protect anyone. So there are no grounds for pressing charges against the police. They can do whatever they want in one of these tragic scenes. Police have the legal right to kill you if they are scared, and the legal right to sit around and do nothing if you are being killed right in front of them. We know this from Sandy Hook. There was a cop there, and he ran out of the school, ran away from the shooting, like the coward that he is. Mm-hmm. The mother of one of the victims, Marie, is in this video that I just showed you, and is still in the same clothes from from right before this incident happened. This person recognized her from a post that she made, and this was the post the mom made. On the same day the shooting happened, her child and many other children received an award. Kimberly Garcia posted, "Mommy loves you. Mommy can't sleep without you. Mommy needs you. Marie, I can't do this life without you. How am I supposed to live without you? I will never understand. I love you, and I will never be the same ever again." And that's a picture of Amarie so proudly holding up her award with her proud mama next to her. And there are other children and parents in the background. The parents were briefly at the school for the ceremony earlier in the day before the school shooting took place. And next, the mom can be seen in this still of the video fighting to try to get through the police line in the video you just watched to save her child, and she was not able to save her child. Her child was killed.
It's just horrible.
There are so many people, Duke.
Yeah.
That could have possibly saved their child from bleeding out.
Yeah.
Or saved their child from that shooter. And they weren't allowed to go in.
Yeah, and they have no excuse. They're going to come up with an excuse. We're trying to protect other people from going in danger and crossing the police line. Well, the police were doing nothing. And the mayor of Uvalde with Beto was yelling at him. It's inappropriate. You get out of here. You can't be here saying these things. That's the mayor of the town, not wanting to be held accountable or having any responsibility for these deaths. And he does.
How can anybody feel that the police have done a good job, much less congratulate them in the media as they did, calling them heroes, when we know what they did was to stop parents from saving their own children?
Exactly.
It should outrage you. It is an outrage, a disgrace in this country. And a tweet from Patton Oswalt, a comic that knows tragedy all too well himself, having lost his wife. Patton says, parents trying to save their kids from an active shooter, not on our watch, says the police. And it shows a group of police SWAT team. And underneath that, there is a message from the Associated Press that he is responding to, a story from the Associated Press that says that the onlookers, the parents basically, were begging the police to charge into the Texas grade school where a gunman killed 19 children and 2 teachers, a witness said. The rampage lasted upwards of 40 minutes, ending when the 18-year-old shooter was killed by a border patrol, that border patrol officer, who went in and tried to find his own child first.
Oh, wow.
And let me just share with you that there is now an official investigation happening because we don't know the truth and we haven't been told the truth by the authorities. Authorities can now confirm, however, that they are examining the response of the police in Uvalde in the shooting of the 19 children amid the conflicting witness statements, including what steps they took to stop the gunman. And part of the review is going to include a timeline that is based on radio traffic.
Good.
Because they're not telling the full story here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And here is the officials no longer confirming what they told us just 24 hours ago.
Yeah.
Officials are also analyzing ballistics to learn who fired and when. Sources say these types of reviews are standard among major incidents, but are intensified in a case because of discrepancies in statements and the gravity of the matter. Uvalde's chief of police could not be reached for comment.
Convenient.
Officials first said a school resource officer and the gunman had exchanged fire, making it seem like he tried to stop him before he got in the school. Mm-hmm. He fired upon him to stop him from entering the school. But now, on Wednesday night, the same authorities and officials say they could no longer confirm that report.
Wow.
So they're going to stay on top of the story until we can find out truly what happened in this situation. I've known for a long time as a reporter that you can't count on the police to tell you what's really going on. In fact, the growing adversarial culture of police toward media, and not just with regard to police shootings, police-involved shootings, or protests or riots, or cases where cops or resource officers are accused of abuse of power. But even in the case where I sent reporters to investigate simple questions of information about how many weapons they have, how many tasers they have, how often do they deploy the tasers, how many pregnant women are tased, if any, how many children are tased a year, if any, what's their policies on the use of tasers, how many elderly people are tased, do tasers need to be regulated differently for different sized bodies, how many people die from use of tasers, and so on and so forth. And having my reporters, when I was editor back at the High Plains Reader, literally intimidated into writing a fluff piece about the cops rather than answering any of their questions. And I began to see that the schools of journalism in this country have not accounted for the pushback and the adversarial nature of policing today, in which they are not available for comment ever. They don't comment during any pending investigation. They never have press conferences where they tell you the truth anymore. They put out statements which the obliging and complicit mainstream media merely parrot back to you and tell you, this is what the police said, and of course we believe them as if it were the gospel truth, knowing full well that they lie to us like they did in the George Floyd case and so many others.
And the police are really difficult for municipalities to control because they don't. Supposedly the chief of police is elected by the city government. They are runaway cops, runaway institutions that have no accountability back to the community that they're serving. And the city councils and commissions and the mayors have no control. So it is something that is spun out of control. And whether it was actually under control, we're looking back at a time of Beaver Cleaver and the cops back in those days, Andy Mayberry. It's never been that way, and it's just escalated and escalated out of control.
Look, I know that there are a lot of debates in this country right now about funding police or defunding police, or about investigating the use of body-worn cameras. Actually, there have been some studies that have been done, and they're kind of controlled for a particular municipality, but it does extrapolate to the rest of the country, in my opinion, because it shows that where the police were required to wear body cameras, they did not use them in every interaction. They didn't turn them on consistently from the moment they started having interaction with people. And sometimes they didn't turn them on at all. There was no consistency to whether or not they charged up their cameras and had a camera with enough battery life to go through their shift. And out of the hours and hours during the period of time that the study looked at that they were engaged in their jobs, there was such a small fraction of that time that their body cameras were on that it simply could not account for even half, even a quarter of their on-duty time being accurately documented by body-worn cameras. So, is it good that we have body-worn cameras on cops now? Yes, definitely. Do they use them consistently?
Nope.
Are there policies that make them use them consistently? Turn them on, make sure that they're charged, turn them on during every encounter? not turn them off when they want to hide things, when they want to have their private conversations, not interfere with the way that the camera can record by blocking it in some way, as many cops do. We don't have a handle on any of that. We don't have a trust in our police forces because they aren't transparent, because they hide and they lie. Because we're still at the point in this country where the only reason we find out about police misconduct is that after years of fighting as media with police to release body-worn cameras, and they fight and fight to keep them hidden, going to courts to keep them secret, when those are finally released, we find out that the police lied completely. Not a little bit, completely lied about the misconduct. What we're finding is that response we get from police every time another horrific tragedy happens, like this one, that there's just that one bad apple that acted wrong. What we're finding is that this is a culture that has putrefied American policing. It is putrid. It has already spread. It is already everywhere. Our police are not protecting our children. Not in Uvalde, not in New York, not anywhere in America. And we won't stand for it anymore. You can vote with your feet. Imagine the immense power that you have as a parent to say no more. If you can't protect my children, then you can't have them. How about if parents throughout America took away the power of those that want to end public education in this country and line their pockets and give the contracts to their private schools and their buddies? What if the parents in America decided they were going to homeschool their children and pull together their resources to hire teachers, tutors, and pass laws that allow them to homeschool their children in states that refuse them that power, that privilege and power, so that you can decide what you teach your children instead of sending them to that institution that doesn't protect them, that can't guarantee their safety, where they get bullied, where they get abused, where they get terrorized by the school resource officer, by the teachers, by the students, where injuries and sicknesses are swept under the rug. And instead, you teach your child in the safety of your home whatever your values are, what you want to make sure that your children learn about America and about education. That's what I would recommend. That's what I did with my own children. And I did that long before there were mass shootings all the time, the way that we've seen in the last decade ramp up. And I did what I had to do in the face of a brutal backlash from everyone, including my family and my parents. Because in this country, everyone, especially BIPOC families, are told you have to send your kids to school. Someone decided that we have to have the kids going to a building where they spend 45 minutes learning one thing and then go to another, and they have to learn with children of their same age, and they have to do it in this order, and then they stop for lunch, and then they have a recess, and then they go home. Who said that's the best way for learning for every kid? Who said that that's the best way for your kid? And with all of the other shortcomings that they have in terms of protecting your kids, educating your kids, keeping your kids safe from abuse, from bullying and the like, especially for trans kids, for queer kids, for disabled kids, for BIPOC kids, for kids of different religions that aren't Judeo-Christian. There has to be a better way. We have to find it. The authorities, the police, the school board, the teachers, they're not going to protect your children. That's your job. And if you fail your children, well, that's on us. These people have given us a wake-up call. They've told us loud and clear, we will not protect your children. And in fact, if you try to save your own children while they're in our custody and care, we'll kill you for trying.
Yep.
That's the message I saw. I hope you got the same message. And I hope that you decide to keep your children safe. That's all I have for you today on A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. God bless and good night.